I'm Brooke Lovelace. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council. Welcome to our second Capital Chat of the year. It's finally the last day of January, which seems to be the longest month of the year. And it's Friday. It's been also kind of a unusual week. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I do have to just show a little bit because of some of the news and stuff that's been out. What my shirt says today, it says, "Be kind to all kinds." So I thought it just was appropriate today, given some of the recent stuff that's been happening. So it's hard to stay positive, I know, for folks. But let's start off with some good news. So those pictures that you see there are from an exciting day that we had at the Capitol on Wednesday. The Iowa DD Council had a legislative reception. And along with that, the Allies in Advocacy, which is a grassroots self-advocacy group that we support, had a press conference to talk about some of the barriers they face with being employed. So we had a panel of folks with disabilities that each shared their story and did a very excellent job. And we'll put a link in there to the Iowa Public Radio. Did a very good article about it too. But the focus is on how they cannot keep their health care if they work more hours and take promotions and earn more money. And so they were sharing stories about that. It really went over well. And then we also visited with legislators before and after. And then we ended the evening, the Allies in Advocacy did with a legislative reception at the State Historical Museum, and it was called Taco About Employment. We had a taco bar. And there folks could talk one-on-one with their legislators and share some more stories about what they want to do, what their career goals are, and what barriers they face. So it was all very successful. Thanks for anybody that attended and supported our day at the Capitol on Wednesday. If you did visit with legislators, you might want to follow up with them, see if they have any more questions about some of our priorities. Employment is our top one. And then if you need any help doing that, or if they have any questions, you can always reach out to myself or Carlin, and we can help support you with that too. And if you're hearing stuff back from them, do let us know about that too. And then so let's talk a little bit about what happened this week. I'm sure many people heard late Monday, early Tuesday, that there was an executive order that required a pause on all federal funding, grants, and programs. The first initial word was that it did not include Medicare or Social Security, but there wasn't any concrete, there was a little bit of confusion about whether or not it included Medicaid. They did come out later that day and say that it did not include Medicaid, but even with all of that, it still shut down the Medicaid payment system, along with some other grant payment systems. So people could not access their funding on Tuesday, even though the shutdown wasn't supposed to take place until 5 o'clock that day, Eastern time. And an injunction came out that stopped that till Monday. And then the next day, the Office of Management and Budget sent out rescinded that executive order, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so everybody thought, that means everything is good. There's still a lot of confusion about that because the press secretary said that doesn't pause the federal funding. It just rescinded the memo. So we really still are unsure what all of that means. And we're not trying to put any more confusion out there. Once we do know for sure what that means, we will share that information with you. The injunction does last till Monday. We are hoping that we'll find out more information on Monday about what it all means. But as far as what this federal shutdown or federal pause means, it does include assistance. For one, it does include the DD councils. They're included in that where we might not have funding. It includes the Center for Independent Living. It also includes the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, Disability Rights Iowa. So it includes a lot of those advocacy organizations, but it also includes funding that folks receive besides Medicaid. It can affect your housing programs. It affects Head Start. It affects some of the Department of Education funding that they get. You can go on and on about all of the programs that folks that use or receive that touch that touch federal dollars or have federal dollars. So it is quite a big deal, and there's still a little bit of confusion about it. We'll try and keep you updated as much as possible. That is something that you can take action on in our action center. You can write your federal senators and legislators and know what you use federal funding for, how important some of these programs mean to you. So do that if you're so inclined. And I think Carlin's going to talk a little bit about how you do that towards the end of the day. The other thing we want to bring up to you too is that along with all of this, there's also proposals out there on the federal level that talks about doing a lot of reducing or eliminating some federal funding for Medicaid programs. And there is like a big meeting that's happening this next few days, next week, with Republicans to kind of put together their proposal. They call it a budget resolution. It includes other programs besides Medicaid, but we know Medicaid is on the table for talking about it. Some of the things that they're talking about or thinking about is reducing the amount of federal dollars that come into the state, so the state would have to pay more. They're also talking about capping, so only so much money the states would get, capping the number of people that can receive Medicaid. They're also looking at adding work requirements. So there's a couple of a few proposals that they're putting out there, and they're all kind of scary because we know how a lot of the folks that are with us today or their family members rely on Medicaid. And so we also are going to have a take action on our site too about, so you guys can call your legislators, write them an email about what you use Medicaid for and how important those services are for you and your family. We also have a webinar next Friday, that will go more into detail, and we'll probably know a little bit more next Friday about what they're proposing, so that might be more helpful. But it's also good for you guys to advocate now while they're having these meetings and talk about Medicaid. And then we'll have a webinar next week where you can learn a little bit more about what's happening and how you can advocate. So stay tuned for that. Sorry for that kind of bad bummer news. And Carlin, what am I missing there?
I don't know. I think you covered it.
It's too depressing to talk about. So maybe move on to, do we have some happy news after that?
Well, we also included in the Take Action Center the action alert regarding the federal freeze on funding. Includes a message in there that you might want to send to your members of Congress about some of the inappropriate remarks that were made this week by the Trump administration about people with disabilities working in the FAA. There's been a lot of media about that. I'm sure that you've all seen it and heard it and reacted to it. It's all over Facebook. And what we put in there was something that we think that you could ask your members of Congress not to support inappropriate depictions of people with disabilities who work, and especially people with intellectual disabilities. So it's not inappropriate to ask your member of Congress not to support or to not support that kind of language. And that ties in very well with the what happened with the federal freeze on funding. That this week was kind of an attack on the disability community in a couple different ways. So it really was a roller coaster of a week. We, came in looking forward to our Capitol Day on Wednesday and really preparing some good information to talk to legislators about in Iowa regarding employment for people with disabilities and how to make that better, and more available, how people with disabilities who are employed could be doing more, and how some of them want to do more, but they're held back. So we had a great day on Wednesday, but it was kind of clouded over because of what happened on Tuesday with the executive order. So we're on this up and down roller coaster. And then Thursday, we had the remarks from the president about people with disabilities. So reach out, talk about it, and tell your lawmakers, members of Congress, how you feel about how people with disabilities are being depicted, because they need to hear from all of us. that it's inappropriate. So we put some language in there, change it if you'd like, and say, use your personal story. And a really good piece of advice is to be specific. We talk a lot about how we tell our stories and um, how change that we'd like to see. The more specific you can be, the better. And we kind of wish that the president had done the same thing earlier this week in his executive order. If he would have been a little bit more specific, we wouldn't have had so much confusion about what's going on. And it's taken up a lot of our time and effort, and that equals money that we could have been investing in people with disabilities instead of reacting to what is going on. So off my soapbox there, but we're going to do a pretty hard shift here in our priorities to focus on Medicaid and what's going on at the federal level and how that's going to affect the state, our state funding and our state budget here, and encourage you to again contact your members of Congress about Medicaid as well as your state legislators. So if you can tune in next Friday, we'll go into that in a lot more detail and look for more information from us coming out. So over to Amy to talk about everything that happened else that happened at the Capitol this week that we weren't able to focus on because of everything else going on. So
Well,
thanks, Amy.
we'll look a little ahead too, but before we get to good news, we got a little bit more bad news. And that is the Iowa Health Department of Health and Human Services presented to the House Health and Human Services Committee on Monday, and they presented the result of their rate reviews. So I will say the sheet that they presented is in this link, and this will be up on our website soon after this meeting, if you want to access that. Another easy way, I don't know if somebody wants to drop that into the chat directly, or you can just go directly to Iowa HHS. If you go Google Iowa HHS government relations, you'll get to their page where they post all their presentation material. But this link will take you directly to the sheet. They went through, so the process that Medicaid has gone through and talked about with providers is they're going to go through all of the rates and try to get to 85%, the Medicaid rates, and try to get to 85% of the Medicare rates, the federal rates. And so the whole idea of this has always been messaged by HHS that 85% of the Medicare rates, and that those that are already at or above 85% would just be sort of leapfrogged over. They wouldn't adjust your rates because you're already at or above that. So they would go on to the next set of rates and look for and increase those until everybody gets up to 85%. And then that becomes a continual process. Well, Monday they announced that they are not doing that. They are right sizing, which means some rates will go up to 85% and others will need to come down. Now, that last part was never communicated before this, the part of coming down to 85%. So one of the things you might remember is in the past 4 years, we've had pretty consistent increases for behavioral health rates. So mental health providers, substance use providers, those rates have been increased over the last couple of years because there has been such a shortage and lack of access to those services. Those are now above 85%. Some, like social worker rates, are at 136%. So they are all coming down in this proposal. It still overall is going to cost more money, almost $5 million, but the big ones that go up are doctor rates and dentist rates. And that is not to say those rates shouldn't be increased. It's just they're taking it away from other ones. So I think that is important to let you know. Legislators are viewing this as a package. They're at this point, they're not saying they would take things out or of that package. I think they're looking at it as they're either going to vote for the package or they're not. So decisions have not been made, but I want to be clear, nobody knew that the rates were going to be adjusted down, that rates were going to be decreased. Everybody thought that meant we were just going to be looking at slowly over time increasing everybody's rates. Nobody said that we were going to go down. So I think that's really important. And you can see the details in that rate sheet. I will say when you see it, there'll be total state dollars in black and in red. The red is the rates that are going down. The black are the rates that are going up. And okay, so I wanted to go on to the new bills. So this is a little bit of good news. We wanted to highlight a couple of things that are happening this week. House File 102 was introduced, and that is the Seizure Safe School Bill. So making sure there are trained staff in schools to recognize when a seizure happens and to provide first aid or support for a student who is having a seizure at school. I think one of the important things that we learned when the Epilepsy Foundation was up at the Capitol on the same day we were, that it's the third most common school emergency is a seizure, a student experiencing a seizure. The part of this package is making sure students themselves know what to do when they see somebody, a fellow student having a seizure, as well as having someone on staff, whether it's a school nurse or somebody else properly trained to make sure that the student has access to their medication and any kind of properly administered medication. And that is also our bill of the week. So when you see our email come out this on Monday, or should be up on our website by this weekend, you will see the bill of the week with some talking points for advocates that they can use, as well as kind of just general information. We also have the Epilepsy Foundation's one pager on that up on the website. So we hope people can take action on that. It's a good bill. DD Council has supported it for the last, 4 or 5 years that it's been introduced. Always passes the House, hasn't passed the Senate yet. House File 121 is a interesting bill that we're still trying to find information on. So just want you to be aware of it, and hopefully in 2 weeks we'll have an update for you. It is a bill that just says school staff and AEAs can help parents apply and get evaluations for HCBS waivers. We're not sure what that means. Help do the evaluation. What kind of training? Who can do the evaluation? Will Medicaid accept those evaluations? So we're trying to get more detail on it. It's very vaguely written, so we're not quite sure what it does. Does not have a subcommittee yet, so it was just introduced. There are a couple other bills we're keeping an eye on. One is Senate Study Bill 1063, which basically says if you're selling your house and you have a lead water line going into it, so a lead pipe for your water going in, it has to be disclosed before you sell the house. That has a subcommittee on, is that Monday? Monday at 3:30. In the Senate, again, I'll remind you that you can, as a citizen, participate and talk in a subcommittee if you would like to, and you can go on the website to find that, how to log into that. But the reason we flag this is lead is a common or a cause of intellectual disabilities and other developmental delays, and lead exposure. And we know that I think about 55,000, more than 55,000 houses in Iowa were identified as either having lead pipes going into their home or they can't detect whether there is. And I think statewide, it's like 350,000. So I think that there is more focus on lead pipes right now. And we do know that's a cause of intellectual disabilities. So something to be noting of for a prevention standpoint, so families know what they're buying in a house. And then two bills were just introduced that have us concerned. They are Senate File 158 and House File 160, which which basically treats anybody's ballot who votes early or who votes same day on election day to be considered provisional. And the importance of that is provisional votes aren't always counted. So anybody early voting may not have their vote counted. And we know that's a popular way to vote now because people just don't know what's going to happen on election day. You don't know if you're going to have staff being able to drive you there, if you'll have transportation, if your health condition will allow you, if there's going to be a giant, snowstorm or ice storm. You never know in Iowa in November. I always vote early because I never know if I'm going to have meetings all day and I want to be safe. So that is something we're concerned about, particularly with voters with disabilities that may have challenges unexpectedly on election day. Just a couple updates on bills we talked about before. House File 5, which is the autism insurance coverage, lifting all the limits on that past subcommittee. So it's we're hoping that the House Education or House Commerce Committee passes that this next week. And then we have a subcommittee on House File 97, which is the House's comprehensive transition program bill that for the scholarships for those programs. And that is on Wednesday at noon. And I will say the House doesn't let you participate. The House doesn't let you speak in subcommittee if you're online, but you can watch the subcommittee. So it is something, if that's interesting to you, you might want to tune in and watch what a subcommittee looks like and see if the bill passes. I think it'll pass out of subcommittee because the chair of the subcommittee is also the sponsor of the bill, Representative Ingalls. So I would expect that to pass. And this has already passed the House before. I would expect that they're going to move it forward. There is a Senate companion, and we'll have a little work to do there. So, Carlin, I'm going to turn it over to you. We have 7 minutes left. So,
what was I supposed to add, Amy?
oh no, I was just going to say we had some talking points for each of those.
Talking points.
You wanted to go over those, or
thank you for sharing. So one thing I'll mention too, with Amy talked about the subcommittee meetings. If you can't attend in person or make comment online if you're on the House side, but you can go to the meeting on the legis.iowa.gov website and leave comments. And I don't know if we can pull that up today, how to do that, but it's very easy to click right into leave a comment, and that goes to everybody on that subcommittee. And they will mention in meetings that they read the comments that people leave there. So that's an easy way to give your talking points. And here are the talking points that we prepared. And if Amy mentioned, we are doing a bill of the week every week and complement that with a sheet of talking points that are hopefully kind of break down some of the parts of the bills that might be complicated and give you some easy talking points. So the scholarship bill will basically make it more affordable for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities to attend these kind of programs. There's not financial assistance available as there are for attending a regular traditional college program. So that's why these are important. I think Amy already did some good talking points on the Seizure Safe Schools in fact, and especially some of the facts and data around seizures in schools, which I don't think some of that has come out as much in the discussions in recent years. So the fact that it's the third most common emergency in a school, and those are also on our list of talking points. And the provisional early voting is new. So that's going to give us an opportunity to do more education again on voting and why all of these changes every year make it more confusing and more difficult for people to vote. And that's exactly not what we want to happen. And the lead pipe disclosure hits home because this is happening. I live in Des Moines, and there's going to be replacement. We're going to be forced to replace our lead pipes, which is a good thing, except for the cost. And so this is the lead pipe discussion is happening at a lot of levels, both state level and at your local level too. So make note of what might be happening in your own community, as well as the state addressing this issue, which is a good thing. Our tools available. I know Amy might have an update on the legislative guide, but now that we know the results of the special election, that was Tuesday, the guide's going to print, and the updated version will also be posted on our website. And we know people have been looking at that. The printed version is a really great resource, especially when you want to know something quickly about a legislator. The legislature's website is great for a lot of things, especially what's happening with bills. When you go to look up a legislator, it takes like 5 clicks to find out what their hobbies are, or what they do in their community, and we have it in a really quick and easy guide, and who's on committees. Sometimes it takes a little while again to dig through on their website, but it's a really great guide, and Amy does awesome job putting it together every year, so we can't thank her enough. All of these bills and more that we talked about today are on our bill tracker, which you can follow and also take action on those bills. And I think we've covered everything else. Don't forget to look up on our calendar, not this calendar, but the one on our website, when your local forums and events are that your legislators are holding in your communities or close by communities, and attend if you can. That's a great way to get to know your legislators and share your stories and your thoughts and your ideas.
Thanks, Carlin. I was just gonna I had forgotten, thank you for Brooke for reminding me that we need to mention that I just posted this on Facebook. So if you go to InfoNet on Facebook, or maybe Emily can share it on the DD Council one as well, that we have until February. If you are interested in serving on a local committee, if you are interested in I'm sorry. So the state has the new 7 behavioral health districts, and each of those districts are going to have a local advisory committee. There'll be 10 members on that. And I think 1/3 of those have to be people with lived experience. So if you are interested in being on one of those, we will include in our weekly report how you can apply for that. We have only 2 weeks to apply. So applications are due February 13th because they want to get started right away. And there's a lot that they want to ask of these advisory councils right away in creating the new system. And so I did post that on the Facebook this morning, but I will include it in our report if you are interested. If you are a provider or other stakeholder, they're going to ask for a resume. If you are a family member or a person with a disability, or have lived experience in either substance use recovery or mental health recovery, you do not have to have that resume if you don't have it. You can just explain why you're interested in it in your application. So I think that's it. Did we get it? Do we all get it in? Ah, it's exactly 12:30. All right, thanks everybody for coming in, tuning in. Let us know if you have any questions. You can feel free to email Carlin or I. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.